You know, people always talk about the Appalachian woods, the shadows, the old roads, the way sound seems to travel wrong out there. But there's something worse, something lonelier, driving alone at night, in the rain. Hey everyone, welcome back to Fear Begins. Tonight's episode is a collection of true encounters from drivers who should have never been out there, in the storm, alone. These are stories of isolation, of headlights that don't belong, and voices that whisper through static when the radio should be silent. Before we start, hit that subscribe button and turn on the notifications, because the next time you're driving down a rainy road at midnight, you might wish you hadn't heard this story. Alright, let's begin. The first time it happened to me, I was 19. I'd just gotten off a late shift at the diner, and the rain had been falling since sunset, a slow, steady curtain that blurred the world into smears of gray. The road from town to my apartment was long, cutting through open country and empty stretches of forest. 23 miles of nothing but blacktop and the sound of rain hammering against metal. My car was old, a hand-me-down sedan that rattled like it had a heartbeat of its own. The wipers squeaked in rhythm, and the headlights carved weak tunnels of light through the downpour. There wasn't another car in sight. Halfway through the drive, I noticed it, a shape in the road. At first, I thought it was just a fallen branch. But as I slowed down, I realized it was standing. A person. They were motionless directly in my lane, facing me. I slammed on the brakes. The tires screeched over the wet asphalt, and my stomach lurched as the car came to a shuddering stop, just feet away. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. The figure didn't move. Through the rain-streaked windshield, I could make out the outline of a man in a long coat. He was drenched, his hair plastered to his forehead. One arm hung limp at his side, the other raised, as if pointing straight at me. I reached for the door handle, then stopped. Every instinct screamed, don't. Something about him felt wrong. The way he stood, completely still despite the wind. The way his face, pale and dripping, seemed oddly blurred, like the rain refused to touch it. I honked once. The sound echoed into the night and died quickly. He didn't react. That's when I saw the car, or what was left of one, half buried in the ditch beside the road. A crumpled frame, metal torn open like paper, headlights flickering faintly through the rain. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "Hey!" I yelled through the glass, though my voice sounded muffled under the storm. He turned his head slightly toward me, just enough for the dim light to hit his face. And I swear, his eyes were completely white. Not glowing, not milky, just white. Like there was nothing behind them. My body moved before my mind could. I threw the car into reverse, the tires spinning water as I backed up. The figure didn't chase, didn't move at all. He just stood there, pointing until he disappeared behind the rain. I drove faster than I ever have in my life. My knuckles were white against the steering wheel, breath shallow, heart beating in my ears louder than the thunder. I didn't stop until I reached the lights of town. When I pulled into the gas station, the attendant came out. A tired-looking man in his 40s with a mustache and a baseball cap. He frowned when he saw me. "Kid, you look like you saw a ghost." I tried to laugh it off, but my voice cracked. There's someone out on Route 17, middle of the road. "There's a crash," he cut me off. His face changed, just slightly, but enough. "Where exactly?" "Just past the curve by Miller's Creek," I said. "A mile or two out." He didn't move for a second. Then quietly he said, "Son, that road's been closed off and on for years. You sure you weren't seeing things?" I blinked at him. "What are you talking about?" "I just drove through it." He shook his head slowly, like he was deciding whether to say something. Then he turned, walked inside, and came back with a folded newspaper clipping. "Here," he said, handing it to me. It was yellowed, water-stained, the print barely legible. Man killed in late-night collision on Route 17. Body found pointing toward oncoming traffic. My stomach dropped. The date on the article was almost exactly 10 years before. Same road, same curve. I looked up at the man. You're kidding. He didn't smile. People still see him. Every time it rains hard enough. He hesitated, then added, "Don't drive that road again, son." Some folks never make it back the same, I laughed, weakly, because that's what you do when you're scared and don't know what else to say. But the next morning, when I checked my car, I noticed something, a handprint. On the hood, faint, muddy, with the fingers stretched out long and pointing straight ahead. At first I tried to wipe it away, but the dirt wasn't on the paint, it was under it. I sold that car a month later. I told myself it was because it wasn't reliable, but the truth is, every time it rained, I'd see the same faint outline on the windshield. And sometimes, in the middle of a long drive, I'd catch the faint shape of someone in my headlights, always standing still, always pointing forward. I haven't taken that road since, but on stormy nights, when I'm driving home late and the wipers start to squeak, I still find myself glancing up at the rearview mirror, just to make sure there's no one standing there. It started with the smell of rain on old asphalt. That scent always brings something back. A memory I don't want, one that clings no matter how many miles I drive. Every time the storm rolls in and the highway hums beneath the tires, I can feel her beside me again. That night, I'd been driving home from a small town just outside Boone, North Carolina. It was past midnight and the rain had started again. Thick, steady, relentless. The kind that muffles the world until you start to forget there even is one beyond the glow of your headlights. I remember thinking how empty the road felt. No taillights ahead, no oncoming glare. Just me and the rhythmic thump of the wipers, fighting a losing battle against the downpour. I should have felt safe inside my car, but the longer I drove, the more I noticed it. A low hum under the engine, too faint to identify, like the echo of another car somewhere nearby, except there was nothing in sight. I turned the radio off to listen closer. The hum didn't go away. I tapped the brakes, half expecting to see headlights appear behind me. Nothing, just darkness and rain. For a second I considered pulling over, waiting out the storm, but something in my chest told me not to stop. The same feeling you get when you know you're being watched, even when logic says you aren't. That's when I saw the sign. Mile marker 117. The number meant nothing at the time. Just another green blur in the headlights. But I'd come to learn it's where the road starts remembering. I'd barely passed it when I saw her. A woman, standing on the shoulder, her white dress plastered against her skin by the rain. Her hair was dark, long, clinging to her face like seaweed. She didn't move, didn't wave, didn't even shiver. Just stood there, facing the highway, her eyes catching my headlights for a split second. And then she was gone. Not like she ducked away or stepped back. She just wasn't there anymore. I slammed the brakes. The tires skidded, water splashing in great arcs. My heart thudded so hard I thought it might stop. I stared through the windshield, but there was nothing. No figure, no shadow, no trace of movement, just rain falling on empty pavement. I sat there for a long minute, wipers squealing, breath fogging up the glass. I told myself it was just exhaustion, a trick of the light, the kind of thing your mind conjures when it's late and you're half a second from sleep. But as I started driving again, my rearview mirror fogged up from the inside. It shouldn't have. I reached back, wiped it with my sleeve, and for half a heartbeat, I saw her reflection behind me, not sitting, not standing, just there, like her outline had been burned into the air itself. When I blinked, it vanished. The rest of the drive blurred together, headlights, rain, that hum beneath the engine. It wasn't until I hit a stretch of highway with no streetlights at all that I realized how dark it had gotten. My high beams didn't seem to cut far enough. The darkness felt thicker, heavier, and then the smell hit. Wet earth. Mildew. Something faintly sweet, like flowers left too long in stagnant water. It filled the car slowly, seeping through the vents. I turned off the AC. The smell didn't fade. Then, soft at first, came the sound. A dripping noise, slow, uneven. From behind me. Drip. Pause. Drip. I told myself it was just rain leaking through the trunk seal, but the rhythm didn't match the storm outside. It was too deliberate. I didn't want to look, but I couldn't stop myself. I adjusted the rearview mirror. The back seat was dark, the shape of the headrests just visible in the dim light. For a second, nothing moved. Then, the faintest outline shifted, a head turning. I swerved, heart hammering, breath short. When I glanced back, the seat was empty again. I drove faster. The rain hammered harder. The highway wound upward through the mountain pass, each curve tighter than the last. I tried to convince myself I was alone, that my nerves were getting the best of me, but then, through the steady roar of the storm, I heard whispering. Not clear words, just the texture of a voice, a wet, rasping murmur, so close it felt like it was brushing against my ear. I gripped the wheel tighter, shaking my head. No, and then the radio flicked on by itself. Soft static. Then faint music, an old song, distorted and crackling. I recognized it. You Are My Sunshine. I used to hum that to my daughter when she was little. Before the accident. The one that happened right here. On this same stretch of road. My throat went dry. I turned the radio off, but the song kept playing, faintly beneath the hum of the tires. Then a small voice whispered from the back seat. Daddy? I slammed the brakes. The car fishtailed on the slick pavement, spinning before stopping inches from the guardrail. My chest heaved. The wipers dragged across the glass with a harsh squeal. I turned slowly, barely breathing. The back seat was empty but wet. The seatbelt on the left side was stretched out, twisted, as if someone had just been sitting there. The smell of damp flowers filled the car again, and that's when I saw the reflection. In the fogged glass of the passenger window, a small handprint. Pressed from the inside, I wiped it away, but it smeared instead of disappearing. Outside, lightning flashed, and in that instant I saw the road sign I hadn't noticed before. Memorial Mile. In loving memory of Sarah Lane, 2009-2016. I didn't remember ever passing that before, but when I reached for my phone to check my GPS, the screen wouldn't turn on. Dead battery. I started driving again, slower this time. My eyes flicked constantly between the road and the mirror. Every sound felt amplified. The wipers, the rain, the faint ticking from the dashboard. Then the hum returned. That same low vibration beneath the car. But this time I realized what it was. Not an engine. Not tires. It sounded like a voice, humming the same tune. You Are My Sunshine. I didn't make it home that night. I ended up pulling over at a rest stop just before dawn. I sat there, shaking, waiting for the rain to stop. When it finally did, I checked the back seat again. Nothing there. No water, no smell, no handprint. But when I turned the ignition, the radio came to life on its own. Static, then a voice. Clear, small, familiar. Thank you for stopping, Daddy. Then silence. When I looked up, the fog on the windshield had started to clear, and drawn in it, faint and trembling, was a smiley face. I wiped it away before anyone else could see. Because even now, years later, Every time I pass mile marker 117 on a rainy night, I still hear her humming along with the wipers, and I don't dare turn off the radio. I don't remember leaving that diner. One moment I was sitting in the cracked vinyl booth, staring into a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. And the next, I was outside again, standing by my car. The rain had stopped, but the air still smelled like it. Wet pavement, old earth, something metallic beneath it all. The world felt hushed, too hushed, as though the storm had taken every sound with it. I should have gone back inside. I should have waited for the sun, but the diner lights were dimming one by one, and something deep inside me said not to look back. So I got in the car. The seat was still damp, even though I'd left the window cracked to let it dry. I turned the key. The engine stuttered, coughed, then caught. For a moment, I just sat there with my hands on the wheel, staring at the road ahead. There's a point during every long drive when the world feels slightly unreal. You've been moving too long, your brain half asleep, your body mechanical. That's where I was, not quite awake, not quite dreaming. The headlights stretched out before me, pale and thin against the black ribbon of highway. The trees leaned in close again, whispering in the wind. That's when I realized the radio was on. I hadn't touched it. I never turned it on. But there it was, a faint crackle beneath the hum of the tires. Not music, not talk, just static. Then under the static, something else. A whisper. So faint I thought it was my imagination. Keep driving. I froze. My foot eased off the gas. The whisper came again. Distorted, distant, but unmistakably real. Keep driving. I stared at the radio dial. No station was showing. Just white noise, sliding in and out of clarity like a weak signal lost in the hills. Keep driving. The words faded, replaced by silence, and then, softly, the voice changed. Lower, closer, right behind me. Don't stop this time. My chest went cold. I didn't dare turn around. I just pressed my foot harder on the gas and focused on the lines of the road until my vision blurred. The rain started again. Light at first, then heavier, drumming against the roof in uneven rhythms. The wipers squealed. My hands were shaking. I told myself I was just tired, that it was all in my head. But the voice had felt too real. The way it seemed to move from the radio to the back seat, like it was trying to find the best place to be heard. The highway curved, and I saw something up ahead. A bridge, narrow, rusted, with a sign leaning half-broken at the entrance. Mason Creek Bridge. 1954, I'd heard that name before. Maybe from a news story, maybe from a book. I couldn't place it, but something about it tugged at a memory I didn't want to recall. The rain thickened as I crossed. The sound of the tires changed, hollow now, echoing against the metal structure beneath me. The wind howled through the cracks, making the bridge moan like a living thing. Halfway across, my headlights flickered, just once. Then again, and in that stuttering light I saw movement, a figure standing on the far side of the bridge. At first I thought it was just a trick of the rain, a shadow, a reflection, but as the light steadied I saw it clearly. A woman, drenched, still, staring. Her clothes clung to her like they'd been soaked for hours. Her hair hung over her face, plastered in dark streaks. She didn't move, didn't signal, didn't blink, just stood there facing me as the rain poured between us. I slowed the car, heart pounding so hard it felt like the only sound left in the world. Something inside me screamed to drive, just drive. But something else held me there. Curiosity, maybe, or something deeper. something I didn't understand. The headlights flickered again, and in that instant, she was gone. I hit the brakes, sliding to a stop just before the end of the bridge. The tires hissed against the wet metal. The space where she'd been standing was empty. No footprints, no shadow. Nothing but rain hitting the asphalt. And then, the faintest sound of knocking from underneath the bridge. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I turned off the radio. The silence that followed felt worse than the whisper. "Hello?" I called out, instantly regretting it. My voice sounded small, swallowed by the storm. Nothing. Then, a whisper. So close to the driver's window it fogged the glass. "Don't stop." I hit the gas. The tires spun once, caught, and launched me forward. I drove until the bridge was a memory, and the rain thinned into mist. My pulse didn't slow until I saw a sign for a small gas station up ahead. The place looked ancient, just a single pump and a dim light above the awning. I pulled in, killed the engine, and took a deep breath. The air smelled like wet metal and oil. Inside, the attendant barely looked up as I walked in. His skin was pale under the yellow light, his eyes tired in a way that felt wrong. "Rough night?" he asked. I nodded, trying to steady my voice. "Yeah. I crossed Mason Creek Bridge. Thought I saw someone." He froze. His eyes flicked toward the window, then back at me. "You stopped?" "No, well, almost," he sighed, shaking his head slowly. "People see her sometimes. That road eats travelers when it rains. They stop to help, and they never leave the bridge." My stomach turned. "You mean she's real?" He didn't answer, just pointed to a wall behind him, where a faded newspaper clipping was pinned beneath a thumbtack. The headline read, "Woman missing after accident on Mason Creek Bridge, 1954. Below it was a black and white photo. The same bridge, the same woman. I stepped closer. The image was grainy, but her eyes, even in that low resolution, looked straight at me. And then the lights flickered. The man looked up sharply. "You'd better get going," he said, his voice thin. "Storm's coming back." I turned toward the door, glancing once more at the photo, but something had changed. The woman's face was different now. Her eyes were wide open. Her mouth curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I blinked hard. Looked again. The picture was the same as before. I told myself I was imagining it. Just tired. Outside, the rain had started again, heavy and relentless. I got back in the car, wiped the fog from the windshield, and started the engine. The radio came to life instantly, without me touching it. Static. Then, faintly, through the crackle, a sound like dripping water, and underneath it, the whisper. "Keep driving." I tried turning the dial. Nothing changed. "Keep driving." The voice grew louder, more urgent. Then, suddenly clear, like someone sitting beside me. "She's behind you." My whole body went cold. I didn't look. I couldn't. Every nerve screamed that if I turned around, I'd see her, drenched, pale, staring. I pressed harder on the gas. The highway blurred. The rain became a wall. Then the headlights caught something ahead. Another car, parked sideways across the road. No lights on. No movement. I slammed the brakes. The tires skidded, hydroplaning. The car spun once, twice, before stopping inches from the other vehicle. I sat there, breathing hard, trying to see through the rain-smeared glass. The car ahead looked wrong, rusted old, like it hadn't been driven in decades. I climbed out slowly, the rain soaking me instantly. The air was cold enough to bite. When I reached the driver's side of the abandoned car, my breath caught. The windshield was shattered. The seats were torn, and inside, on the fogged glass, were words written in long, wet streaks. "You stopped again." Lightning flashed. The bridge behind me, the one I thought I'd left miles ago, loomed in the distance. I hadn't escaped it at all. I was still on it. And in the next flash of light, just for an instant, I saw her standing in the middle of the road again, dripping, motionless, but this time she was smiling. I don't know how long I sat there. The rain kept hammering against the windshield, blurring everything outside into shifting shapes and shadows. I could still see the outline of the old car ahead of me, the one that shouldn't exist, but the bridge was gone. Or maybe I was the one who was gone. I blinked hard, trying to make sense of it. But every time I looked up, the road seemed to change. The horizon twisted slightly, the lines faded, and the mist grew thicker, swallowing the edges of everything. My phone was dead. The GPS was dead, and for the first time I realized something terrifying. The clock on the dashboard wasn't moving. 13 a.m. It had been that time since the diner. I started the car again, because doing something felt safer than doing nothing. The headlights cut through the fog, but only barely. It was like driving inside a dream, the kind where no matter how far you go, you never actually arrive anywhere. The road just kept going. After maybe 10 minutes, or an hour, it was impossible to tell. I saw a flicker of light through the trees, faint golden, pulsing slightly. It looked like a porch light, a house maybe, civilization. Relief hit me so fast I almost laughed. I pulled over near a narrow dirt path that disappeared into the woods. The ground was soft from the rain, and the moment I stepped out, I could feel the mud pull at my shoes. The trees were silent, too silent. Even the rain seemed quieter here, like the forest itself was holding its breath. That light flickered again. Closer now, hello? I called out, instantly regretting it as my voice echoed back between the trees. It didn't sound right. The echo came too fast, as if the forest was smaller than it looked. I walked toward the glow. Each step made a soft squelch, and every sound seemed amplified. The rustle of wet leaves, the soft drip from branches, the slow drag of my breath. After a few minutes, the path opened into a small clearing. And there it was, a cabin, old but still standing, the kind that looked like it had been built before highways even existed. The porch light swayed gently in the wind, creaking on a single wire. Someone was home. I climbed the steps slowly, the wood groaning beneath my weight. The door was cracked open slightly, enough for a faint line of yellow light to spill across the floorboards. I hesitated, knocked once, no answer. Another knock, nothing. I pushed the door open. The air inside was warm, too warm. It smelled faintly of wood smoke and something else. Something sweet but old. Hello? I called again. The living room was small. A rocking chair sat by the fireplace, still moving slightly as if someone had just left it. A pot of tea steamed on a table beside it, untouched but fresh. And then I saw the photos, dozens of them, pinned to the walls. Black and white, faded, curling at the edges. Faces of strangers, men, women, children, all looking directly at the camera with hollow eyes. I stepped closer. Something about them felt familiar, not the faces themselves, but the backgrounds. Every single one was taken on a road, wet asphalt, fog, headlights glowing faintly behind them. Then I saw the last photo in the row, one that stopped my breath entirely. It was me, sitting in my car, staring straight ahead. I staggered back, knocking into the table. The teacup rattled. The room suddenly felt too small, the air thick. I turned toward the door, and that's when I heard it. A slow creak from upstairs, followed by the sound of footsteps. Deliberate, measured, too heavy for the size of the house. I froze, watching the top of the staircase. The light from below barely reached the landing, but I could see a shadow stretching down the wall. long, uneven, shifting with each step. Then, a whisper. "You shouldn't have stopped." My throat went dry. The words were the same as before. The same tone, the same voice from the radio. I turned and bolted for the door, but the moment I stepped outside, everything changed. The air was freezing now, the rain gone. The road behind me had vanished. In its place was water, black, endless, perfectly still. The cabin sat alone in the center of what looked like a lake. No ripples, no reflection, just stillness. I backed away from the edge, heart hammering. The porch light flickered once, twice, then went out. The sound that followed was almost inaudible, like something moving just beneath the surface of that dark water. A slow ripple spread outward, then another, and then silence again. I turned back toward the door. It was closed now. I didn't remember closing it. When I grabbed the handle, it was ice cold. The moment I pushed it open, I was hit with a rush of warm air again, and I was standing in the diner. Same booth, same cup of coffee, same flickering neon light outside. My watch said 2:13 a.m. Exactly the same as before. The waitress was standing near the counter watching me. Her expression was blank, but her hands were shaking slightly. "You okay, hun?" she asked, her voice oddly distant, like she was speaking through static. I blinked. "How did I get back here?" She frowned, tilting her head. "You never left." I looked out the window. The rain was coming down hard again, and through the blur of it I could just make out my car, parked exactly where it had been when I left. My heart started racing. No, I was on the road. The bridge, the woman. The waitress stepped closer, lowering her voice. "You've been here the whole time. You were talking in your sleep. You kept saying something about a bridge." I glanced at my cup again. Steam was rising from it now. It was hot, fresh, but my hands were wet. I lifted them slowly. Rainwater dripped from my sleeves onto the table. The waitress's smile faltered. "You're dripping all over." I looked down. My shirt was soaked dark with moisture. My shoes left small puddles on the tile. I don't understand," I whispered. Then I noticed something. On the napkin beside my coffee cup, words had been written in shaky, smeared ink. "Don't leave the diner." My pulse jumped. "Did you write this?" The waitress shook her head. "I just got here." The lights flickered once. The sound of the rain changed, sharper now, like it was hitting glass that was right above me. I looked toward the door. Through the window, I could see someone standing just outside. A woman, soaked, motionless, her hair hanging down over her face, the same woman from the bridge. The waitress followed my gaze, then whispered, "You shouldn't look at her." I turned back to ask what she meant, but the diner was empty, the lights were off. The air smelled like rust and wet earth. The neon sign outside flickered once, revealing the faint outline of the woman pressed against the glass. Her hand lifted slowly, leaving a trail of moisture as it slid down the window, and then the faintest sound, the knock. 3 slow, deliberate knocks, the same rhythm as before. I tried to move, but my body wouldn't listen. I felt frozen in that booth, the sound echoing inside my skull. Then, silence again. I closed my eyes, counted to 10, opened them. The diner was gone. I was back on the highway. The car engine was running. The headlights cut through the fog. The radio was on, whispering softly through static. I looked in the rearview mirror, and for the first time I didn't see her. I saw me, but not like I was. Not moving, not breathing. Just sitting there in the back seat, eyes open, staring straight ahead, and then the voice clear and close. I've never liked driving at night. Not since what happened 3 years ago on Highway 46. It wasn't just the rain or the darkness. It was the silence that came after. The kind that doesn't feel empty. The kind that feels occupied. It was a Thursday night, and I was coming back from a work trip. The rain started slow, tapping against the windshield like a warning. By the time I hit the 2-lane stretch between Preston and Miller's Ridge, it was pouring hard enough that I could barely see 10 feet ahead. My headlights caught the silver threads of rain as they fell in sheets, and every drop looked like it was chasing me. I turned the radio off after the static got worse. No music, no voices. Just the soft, rhythmic squeak of the wipers and the hum of the engine. There's something hypnotic about driving through heavy rain. The way the world narrows down to what's right in front of your hood. You stop thinking about where you're going. It's just movement and noise and the dark pressing in from all sides. I was halfway through the stretch when I noticed the car. It was pulled off onto the shoulder, hazard lights blinking faintly through the rain. I slowed down, squinting to see if someone was inside. The red lights flashed against the wet pavement, reflecting like blood in the puddles. As I got closer, I realized it wasn't just any car. It was the same make and model as mine, same color too, a dark blue Ford Fusion. That alone made me uneasy. There was something unsettling about seeing your own car stranded on the side of the road, like staring into a mirror that doesn't quite match your reflection. I rolled past slowly, trying to peer inside. The driver's seat was empty. The passenger side door hung open. For a second, I thought maybe someone had gone out to get help, but there was nowhere to go. On both sides of the road, dense forest swallowed everything beyond the guardrail. I considered pulling over, but something deep down, instinct, fear, I don't know what, whispered keep going, so I did, except the weirdest thing happened. A few miles later, I saw another pair of hazard lights flashing through the rain, same angle, same pulsing glow through the mist, and when I got closer, same car, same make, same model, same open passenger door. This time my stomach twisted. I gripped the steering wheel tighter and pressed the gas pedal, forcing myself not to look too long as I passed. Maybe I was tired. Maybe the rain was playing tricks on me. But when I looked in the rearview mirror, the hazard lights were gone. No car. Just the black road stretching endlessly behind me. I felt my pulse in my neck. I turned the radio back on. Anything for sound, something to anchor me. But instead of music, I got a voice. Not clear. Distant, broken, like someone talking through water. Get out. I froze. Static swallowed the voice before I could catch the rest. I stared at the radio, my breath fogging up the glass. Then, faintly, I heard it again. Behind you. I twisted in my seat, heart hammering, scanning the back seat through the rearview mirror. Nothing, just the wet leather glistening under the dim dome light. I told myself I was imagining things, that it was just interference. Rain, fatigue, bad reception, anything but what it sounded like. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was following me. I checked the rear-view mirror again. This time I saw headlights in the distance, two dim white orbs, cutting through the curtain of rain. Finally, another driver. Relief flooded me. I slowed a little, hoping they'd catch up. Company, even from a stranger, felt better than being completely alone. But as the car approached, something about the light pattern didn't look right. The beams didn't sway with the road. They didn't move naturally. They stayed perfectly aligned with mine. I glanced in the mirror again. The headlights were closer now, reflecting off the slick pavement. And then, in a flicker of lightning, I saw the outline. It wasn't a truck or SUV. It was a sedan, a dark blue Ford Fusion. My mouth went dry. My hands tightened on the wheel until my knuckles ached. It couldn't be. I pressed the accelerator. The engine whined, but the headlights behind me didn't shrink. They stayed locked behind, following every curve, every turn, perfectly matched to my speed. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was just a coincidence. Someone with the same car, same color, same headlights. But then, through the next flash of lightning, I saw something that made my stomach twist into a knot. There was no driver inside. The car was empty. The headlights stayed steady as it followed me, even as the road twisted sharply through the trees. No drift, no hesitation, just tracking me. I pressed the pedal to the floor. The speedometer climbed past 80, 90. The wipers couldn't keep up. The world outside turned to streaks of gray and white. My heartbeat pounded so loud it drowned out the rain. And still the lights stayed right behind me until suddenly they were gone. No fade, no distance, just gone. I slowed down, gasping for breath. The road stretched empty in both directions, the rain pounding like static in my ears. I wanted to believe I'd escaped it, but then my radio crackled again. This time the voice was clearer. "Don't stop." I slammed my hand on the power button, turning it off. But the sound didn't stop. It was coming from the back seat, like someone whispering right behind my head. "Keep driving." I couldn't breathe. I didn't dare look in the mirror. I just pressed harder on the pedal and stared straight ahead. I don't remember the rest of the drive, just the endless rain, the hiss of the tires, the fog closing in like smoke. When I finally pulled into the motel parking lot hours later, I sat there for a full minute before turning around. The back seat was empty, but the seatbelt on the passenger side, the one in the back, was buckled. It hadn't been when I left. I unbuckled it, shaking, telling myself it was nothing, that I must have hit it with my bag earlier. But then I noticed something else, a wet footprint on the floor mat, bare, small, like a child's. When I checked out the next morning, the clerk asked how my night was. I tried to smile. "Fine, just long." He nodded, his eyes flicking briefly toward the window. "You came down from 46? "Yeah," I said. "In that storm?" He frowned. "You're lucky. That stretch has been closed most of this week. Flash floods washed out a bridge about 5 miles in." I froze. I'd driven at least 20 miles on that highway. He must have seen my expression, because his voice softened. "You sure you didn't take a detour?" I didn't answer. I just walked out into the parking lot and looked at my car. The paint was still streaked with dried rain. The windows fogged slightly from the morning chill, and on the rear windshield, drawn faintly through the condensation, was a message: "Keep driving." I wiped it away with my sleeve, but that night, when the rain started again, I couldn't bring myself to start the engine. Because if I did, I knew exactly what kind of car would be waiting for me in the rear view. It was just after 2 a.m. when I decided to take the long way home. The rain had been relentless all evening, washing over the empty roads like a curtain of gray. My windshield wipers squealed with every pass, fighting a losing battle against the sheets of water. I should have stayed at the motel, waited until morning. But I'd been restless. Something about that small, dim room, with its humming fluorescent light and the sound of the storm outside, made my skin crawl. I told myself a drive would clear my head. The truth is, I've never liked silence. Not since that night. The road stretched on like a ribbon of darkness, winding through the Appalachian foothills. My headlights barely cut through the mist. The trees leaned close on either side, their wet branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. I kept my eyes on the white lines, just driving. No music, no radio, just the hum of the tires and the steady thump of the wipers. That's when I saw the first set of headlights behind me, a faint glow in the rearview mirror. I hadn't seen another car for nearly an hour, so the sight almost felt like relief. But the feeling didn't last. The lights didn't get closer. They just stayed the same distance behind me, far enough that I couldn't see the car itself, but bright enough to keep me aware of them. I changed lanes once. The lights followed. I slowed down a little. They slowed too. I sped up. The same. That cold, crawling feeling started in my chest. I told myself it was nothing, maybe a trucker keeping a steady pace in the storm, maybe someone nervous about the rain like me. But my gut wouldn't settle. The rain eased for a moment, and I caught a glimpse of the road behind me. No car, just the wet pavement shining in my headlights' reflection. But when I looked back in the mirror, the lights were there again. It made no sense. My throat tightened. I tried to focus on the road ahead, but I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever, or whatever, was behind me didn't want to pass. It wanted me to know it was there. A flash of lightning split the sky, and for a fraction of a second, I saw it. Not a car. A shape, tall, thin, standing in the middle of the road, holding something that shimmered in the rainlight. When the thunder cracked, it was gone. I don't remember breathing for a full minute after that. My grip on the steering wheel was so tight my fingers ached. Then I saw the sign for an old rest stop up ahead. The kind that looks abandoned except for one lonely vending machine still glowing in the dark. I decided to pull over just to stop shaking. The parking lot was empty except for puddles reflecting the dull orange glow of the overhead lights. I turned off the engine but kept the headlights on. The rain had slowed to a drizzle now, softer, quieter, but somehow heavier in its silence. When I stepped out, the air felt wrong, too still. The only sound was the faint buzz of the light above the restroom door. I stood there, half expecting another car to pull in behind me. But the highway remained empty, no sound, no light, and yet the hum from the engine was still there, except my car was off. I leaned closer to the hood. The vibration wasn't mechanical. It was deeper, almost like it was coming from underneath. I stepped back quickly, rain soaking through my jacket. My pulse pounded in my ears. I told myself to get back in, drive away, forget the rest stop. But then, from the corner of my eye, I saw the vending machine flicker. Just once. Then again, the hum from under the car stopped, and then I heard it. Footsteps, slow, careful, crunching through gravel. I spun around. No one. The sound came again, closer this time, followed by the faintest echo of something wet dripping. The rain had stopped completely now. I could feel every hair on the back of my neck standing up. "Hello?" I called out, my voice breaking in the stillness. No answer. I reached for the car door, but it was locked. I never locked it. My keys were still in my hand, but when I hit the button, nothing happened. That's when I heard it, a whisper, so faint it barely rose above the sound of my own heartbeat. "Why did you stop?" It came from the direction of the woods. I turned, scanning the tree line, and that's when I saw the figure again, the same one from the highway. Tall, thin, its outline warped by the mist. Something metallic glinted in its hand, not a weapon but a lantern. The flame inside burned a pale blue. It didn't move closer, it just stood there, watching, My first instinct was to shout, to demand who it was, but my throat locked up. The lantern light flickered, and for the briefest second, the figure's face caught in the glow. It was mine. My own face. Dripping with rain. Expressionless. I blinked, and it vanished. The vending machine behind me flickered. Again, this time spitting out a can with a hollow clang that echoed across the lot. That sound, that metallic thud, snapped me out of the trance. I dove into the car, slammed the door shut, and hit the ignition. The engine roared to life, tires spinning as I tore back onto the highway. I didn't look in the mirror again, not until 10 minutes later when I finally let myself breathe. And that's when I saw something that still makes my stomach turn. The back seat, empty at first, shimmered faintly in the dim light from the dashboard. The leather looked wet, and carved into the condensation on the inside of the rear window were 5 words, written in a shaky hand. You weren't supposed to stop. The rest of the drive is a blur. The rain started again. The road stretched endlessly ahead, like I'd been driving in circles. I passed the same signs over and over, same gas station, same broken guardrail, same curve by the bridge. Finally, just before dawn, I saw a small diner's neon lights cutting through the fog. I pulled in, shaking. The place was empty except for an older man behind the counter. He looked up as I entered, eyes tired but kind. "Rough night?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, forcing a laugh that didn't sound real. "Stopped at that old rest area about 20 miles back. Someone was out there." The man's face paled. "There hasn't been a rest stop on that stretch in 30 years, he said quietly. "Washed out in a landslide, took a few cars with it. Folks still say they see headlights now and then." I wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, but I couldn't. My throat felt dry again. He looked at me carefully, then asked, "You didn't stop, did you?" I swallowed hard. Outside, the first light of morning hit the wet pavement, and for just a second, in the reflection of my car's rear window, I saw it. A tall figure holding a lantern, watching me, and when I blinked, the light flickered out. I remember thinking that if I just kept driving, I'd wake up, that maybe the hum of the tires would drown out whatever nightmare had wrapped itself around me. But the longer I stayed on that endless wet stretch of highway, the more it felt like the road wasn't taking me anywhere. It was keeping me here. The clock on the dashboard flickered once, jumped from 2:13 to 3:09, then died completely. The rain had thinned to a mist now, soft but constant, tapping against the windshield in a steady rhythm. It reminded me of someone drumming their fingers impatiently. I didn't know how long I'd been driving, but the fog ahead looked different, thicker, heavier. It wasn't rolling like normal fog does. It was rising like smoke, and through it, faint but real, I saw a light. It wasn't a car. It was higher, steady, like a floodlight or maybe a tower lamp. I slowed the car and leaned forward, squinting. The outline of a building appeared through the mist. A motel. The sign buzzed faintly, half the bulbs dead, but I could still make out the words, "Rest Easy Lodge." A laugh almost slipped out of me, the kind that comes when your nerves finally snap. Rest easy, yeah, right. Still, anything was better than the road. I pulled into the cracked parking lot and killed the engine. The silence hit me like a weight. No wind, no rain, just stillness. The fog drifted low across the asphalt, wrapping around the car like smoke. I grabbed my phone out of habit, No signal. Of course. The motel office light glowed faintly through a dirty window. A bell sat on the counter inside, and a faded sign leaned beside it. Ring for service. The air smelled of mildew and something faintly metallic. I pressed the bell once. The sound echoed too long in the small lobby, like the room itself was hollow. After a few seconds, a door creaked open behind the counter, and a man stepped out. Thin, grey, eyes too sharp for the rest of his tired face. "Late night," he said, voice low, almost rehearsed. "Road's not safe in this weather." I nodded slowly. "Yeah, I figured I'd stop for a few hours. You got a room?" He glanced at the key rack behind him. Only one key was missing. Every other tag hung untouched, coated in dust. "Number 7, he said, sliding it across the counter. "Only one open tonight." I didn't question it. I should have. The key was cold in my hand, colder than it should have been. The brass tag had scratches running across the numbers, like someone had tried to scrape them off. "Checkout's at 11, the man said. His eyes didn't leave mine. "If you hear knocking, don't answer." I froze. "Sorry?" He blinked once, slow as if waking from a trance. "Nothing. Long night. Enjoy your stay." I waited for him to smile. He didn't. Outside, the fog had thickened again. The lights from the office barely reached past the first few feet of the lot. I counted the room numbers as I walked. 3, 4, 5, 6. Room 7 was at the very end. The door was slightly ajar. I stopped. The handle was wet. Not rain wet, slick like condensation or breath. I wiped it on my sleeve and pushed the door open. The light flickered once, then steadied. The room was small. Bed, desk, single lamp, heavy curtains drawn tight. A faint hum came from the wall, like a distant generator. The air felt wrong. Not cold exactly. Just off. Heavy. As if it didn't want me breathing it in. I shut the door, locked it, and dropped my bag on the bed. The springs groaned softly. I tried the TV, but it only showed static. No sound, just flickering grey snow. The volume button didn't work. I muted it and left it on. The screen's dull glow filling the room with a ghostly light. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I noticed something scratched into the wood of the nightstand. Faint, but there. Letters carved roughly overlapping each other. "Stay awake." I ran my fingers over the grooves. The edges were old, worn smooth by time. That's when I heard it. The knock. 3 soft taps. Slow. Deliberate. I froze, staring at the door. The sound came again, louder this time. Not frantic, not demanding, patient. Like whoever was out there knew I'd eventually open it. I stood up, heart thudding in my chest. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the hum in the wall. Another knock. Same rhythm. I backed away until I hit the dresser. The TV flickered once, showing a quick burst of static shapes. For half a second I swore I saw the outline of a face. Then silence again. I waited. A full minute passed, then 2. The air seemed to settle. Finally I exhaled and forced a shaky laugh. "Just the wind," I whispered. "Old buildings make noises, that's all." I turned off the lamp and crawled under the covers, leaving the TV on for light. I don't know how long I stayed awake. The fog outside pressed against the window like a living thing, dulling the glow from the lot streetlight. My eyes grew heavy. The hum from the wall blended with the rain's rhythm, and then a voice. Soft. Right beside my ear. "You shouldn't have checked in." I sat bolt upright. The room was empty. The window was fogged from the inside. The air smelled different now, damp like old soil. The TV was off. The hum had stopped. Only my heartbeat filled the silence. I grabbed my phone, flicked on the flashlight, and swept it around the room. Everything looked the same except The curtains were open. I hadn't touched them. Outside, I could see the parking lot, but the fog wasn't white anymore. It was dark, dense, pulsing faintly, almost like it was breathing. A shape moved inside it, something tall, thin, the kind of movement that didn't match how people walk. Too smooth, too slow. It stopped just beyond the light. I couldn't make out its face, but I felt it looking back at me. I backed away from the window until my legs hit the bed. The light from my phone flickered once, then died. In that darkness, I heard the knock again, this time from inside the room. I spun around, scanning the walls, the bathroom door, the closet, nothing. Then a low creak right behind me. I turned slowly. The closet door was open now, just a sliver. A draft of cold air spilled out from the gap. "Hello?" My voice barely came out. Nothing. I stepped closer, each breath shaky, the floorboards groaning softly under my feet. The smell was stronger now, old, musty, and something else beneath it. A faint trace of smoke. I reached out and touched the door. It swung open easily. The closet was empty. No coats, no hangers, just a narrow space and a wall at the back. Except it wasn't a wall. It was another door, a smaller one. Old wooden with a keyhole that looked hand-carved. I knelt down, heart hammering so hard I could hear it echo in my ears. Faintly, impossibly, I could hear breathing from the other side. Slow, even, matching mine. I pressed my ear against the wood. Is someone in there? The breathing stopped. For a moment I thought maybe I'd imagined it. But then a voice, low and trembling, whispered through the keyhole. "Don't let him in." I stumbled back, nearly tripping over my bag. My pulse roared in my head. Knock, 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 from the front door this time. And then again, from the small door behind the closet. Both in the same rhythm. I couldn't move, couldn't think. The air in the room felt thick enough to choke on. Then, silence. When I finally looked up, the door at the back of the closet was gone. Just smooth wall. The knocks had stopped. I didn't sleep that night. By morning, the fog had lifted, but the parking lot was empty. No car, no sign of the office, not even the road. Just a single long stretch of cracked asphalt leading nowhere. I ran outside, calling out, shouting until my voice broke. The sound echoed strangely, bouncing back at me too fast. I turned back toward the motel and froze. Every door was open, every room empty, and hanging from each doorknob was a single, rusted key, except mine. Room 7 was locked tight. I stood there until the sunlight faded and the mist began to roll in again, and somewhere inside that endless gray, faint but unmistakable. When I finally got back into the car, the seat felt cold, damp, like the fabric had absorbed the fog itself. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel, not from the chill but from the silence pressing against me. There was no sound, not even the faint hiss of rain or the distant rumble of thunder. The world had gone still again. I started the engine. The headlights cut through the mist for a few feet, then were swallowed whole. The road beyond the motel looked the same in both directions, empty, slick, endless. I picked one at random and drove. The tires hissed over the wet pavement, a steady rhythm that kept my thoughts from unraveling completely. But after a few minutes I realized something. My rearview mirror showed nothing. Not darkness, not fog, not even the faint outline of the motel. Just a flat black void. I tried to adjust it, but the mirror wouldn't move. My reflection flickered there for a heartbeat and then was gone, replaced by something else. A faint shape, like someone sitting in the back seat. I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Every nerve in my body screamed to look. But I knew, deep down, that if I did, It would become real. So I kept my eyes forward, jaw clenched, breath short. The only sound was the engine and the rain returning in soft, uneven waves. After what felt like hours, a road sign emerged from the fog. Highway 19, 6 miles. Relief hit me so hard it was dizzying. Civilization. Maybe I could find a gas station, a diner, a phone. Maybe I could pretend this was all just exhaustion and bad weather. But as I got closer, I saw that the sign was wrong. The letters were shifting, almost melting, like they were written in water instead of paint. The numbers flickered, became 91, then 119, then nothing at all. I blinked, and it was gone. The post was still there, but the sign itself had vanished. My breath fogged the windshield even though the defroster was running. The air inside the car had turned heavy again, thick with that same faint metallic scent I'd smelled in the motel lobby. That's when the radio turned on by itself. No music, just static. Then beneath it, a faint voice. "You left the door open." I froze. The sound was soft, warped, like it had been recorded underwater. "He's still there." The static swelled, swallowing the words, then cut off completely. I turned the dial, trying to find another station, but every frequency was the same. White noise, layered whispers, something that almost sounded like breathing. When I finally shut it off, I realized the car had stopped. I hadn't touched the brakes. The headlights shone on a narrow stretch of road lined by trees, their wet branches reaching down like skeletal fingers. There was no sign of any other car, no lights, no sound. Just the rain again, falling harder now, almost punishing. I should have turned around, but something about the way the road looked, like it was waiting for me, made it impossible. I pressed the gas. A few minutes later, I saw movement on the shoulder. A man. He was walking along the edge of the road, head down, hands shoved deep into his pockets. His clothes were soaked, hanging heavy on him. I slowed the car, rolling the window down just enough to call out, "Hey, you okay? You need a ride?" He stopped walking, didn't turn, didn't answer. For a long moment, the only sound was the rain hitting the hood. Then he moved, slowly, lifting his head just enough for me to see his face. It wasn't right. Not in a gruesome way, but in a way my mind couldn't quite hold. Like every feature was there, but shifted a fraction off from where it should have been. His eyes didn't blink at the same time. His mouth didn't move when he spoke. "Room 7, he said softly, and then he smiled. Not a grin, not joy, just a slow, deliberate curve of the lips. Like he was repeating a gesture he'd seen once but never quite understood. I hit the gas and didn't look back. The rain came harder now, pounding against the windshield in waves. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely keep the wheel steady. But when I glanced down at the dashboard, my heart froze. The keychain dangling from the ignition wasn't mine. It was brass, scratched. Room 7. I slammed on the brakes, the car skidding sideways across the slick pavement. I sat there, chest heaving, staring at the key as it swung gently under the dashboard light. Then, knock, soft, from the trunk, 3 times. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't move. Knock again, and then a 3rd time, slower. I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and climbed out into the rain. My shoes sank into the mud at the shoulder. The world around me was nothing but grey mist and the low hum of the engine idling behind me. I walked to the back of the car. Water streamed down the metal, distorting my reflection. My hand hovered over the latch. I don't know why I did it. I wish I hadn't. I lifted it. The trunk was empty. No bags. No spare tire. Just wet carpet, but on the inside of the lid, carved deep into the metal were words, jagged, overlapping, desperate. "He knocks to be let in." My flashlight flickered. The air shifted, colder now, sharper, and somewhere behind me, in the dark fog that had thickened around the road, I heard it again. Knock, knock, knock. Coming not from the car this time, but from somewhere farther off, rhythmic, patient calling. I got back in the car, locked the doors, and pressed the gas hard enough that the tires screamed. The sound echoed unnaturally in the fog, stretching too long, like it didn't want to stop. As I drove, I noticed something strange. The landscape had changed. The trees on either side were gone, replaced by stretches of blackened field. Burned. The ground shimmered faintly, like heat rising off asphalt, and in the distance, through the haze, I could see a faint glow, warm, flickering, a fire, maybe, or lights from a house. I followed it, desperate for anything human, anything real. The closer I got, the clearer it became. A single cabin, sitting alone at the edge of the field. A wooden porch, light spilling through the windows. I parked, engine still running, and stepped out. The air smelled faintly of smoke and pine. My heart was hammering so loud that it drowned out everything else. As I approached, I saw someone inside, a figure sitting near the window facing the door. They were waiting. When I knocked, the sound echoed strangely, almost metallic. The figure didn't move. I tried again. This time the door creaked open on its own. The cabin was empty. No furniture, no lights, just the faint smell of ash and the soft, wet sound of dripping water somewhere inside. I turned to leave, only to see the door closing by itself. I lunged forward, but it was too late. The latch clicked. The sound that followed wasn't a knock. It was breathing, close, behind me. Slow, steady, in perfect rhythm with my own. I turned around, but the room was still empty. Then I saw it. The faint outline of a handprint appearing on the inside of the window, slowly pressing against the glass from the outside. Then another, and another, each one smudged, dragging down as if something was trying to claw its way in, or out. I backed away until I hit the wall. My knees gave out, and I slid down, pressing my hands over my ears, but I could still hear it. The knocks. Soft. Close. Coming from every wall now, one after the other. Surrounding me. Then they stopped. The silence after was worse. I stayed there, barely breathing, until I realized something terrifying. The window, the one that had been fogged from the outside, was now fogging from the inside, and written in the condensation, backwards but unmistakable, were words traced by a finger. "You brought him." My chest tightened. The air felt too thick to breathe. I ran to the door, pulled the handle. It opened easily. The fog outside was even denser now, curling around the cabin in slow, deliberate swirls. When I looked back one last time, the cabin lights flickered on, even though there had been no bulbs. And in that dim glow, sitting where the chair had been, was a shape, still, waiting. I turned and ran into the fog. The sound of my footsteps swallowed instantly. I don't know how long I ran before I found the road again. The car was gone. The field was gone. Only the fog remained. And far behind me, faint but unmistakable, came 3 slow knocks. Knock, knock, knock. The fog had swallowed the world. It pressed close against my face, cold and damp, tasting faintly of metal and rot. I could see no more than a few feet ahead, the faint outline of the road shimmering in the moonlight before it. 2 dissolved into grey nothingness. I kept walking, one hand stretched out in front of me like a blind man feeling for a wall. The air was thick, heavy, and each breath came shallow, reluctant. It was like the fog didn't just hide things, it contained them. My boots squelched softly against the wet pavement. No other sound, not wind, not rain, not even the distant hum of insects. Just silence, perfect and wrong. Then a faint hum, so low I almost didn't hear it. It wasn't coming from the road or the air. It was inside my head, a low vibration, like an old refrigerator running in another room. The kind of sound that isn't exactly heard but felt in your bones. I stopped walking. It stopped too. The silence returned, sharper now, like it was listening. I whispered to myself, anything, just to break the stillness. You're fine. Just keep walking. The fog will clear. The fog didn't clear, but something shifted inside it. A flicker, quick, like a shadow darting across light. It moved at the edge of my vision, then vanished. Then another. Shapes, human shapes. Faint, distant, walking in the fog just ahead of me. Relief hit me first. People. Finally, I called out, "Hey! Hey, wait!" They didn't answer. I quickened my pace. The figures stayed the same distance ahead, moving slowly but never letting me get closer. I could hear something now, faint footsteps matching mine, except not quite. When I stopped, they didn't. Their steps continued for a beat longer, echoing faintly, until they too came to a stop. I could see the faintest suggestion of faces in the fog, their heads turning slightly toward me, though their bodies stayed still. My throat tightened, then one of them raised an arm and pointed, not at me, at something behind me. I froze. For a moment I couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Every muscle in my body screamed to run, but the air was too heavy, the fog too thick. Slowly I turned my head. Behind me, where the road disappeared into nothingness, a faint orange glow pulsed, like a dying ember. I took a step toward it before I realized what I was doing. The glow grew brighter. It wasn't fire. It wasn't headlights. It was something else. A light that didn't cast shadows, didn't reflect, didn't feel right. The humming returned, louder now, vibrating through my chest, my teeth. My vision wavered, and for a second the fog seemed to ripple like water, disturbed by an unseen current. When it settled again, the shapes were gone. I was alone, but the light, it was closer now, and it was moving. I backed away slowly, my heart beat a drum in my ears. The humming grew louder, deeper, until I could feel it pressing against my skull. The light pulsed once, twice, then, suddenly, silence. The fog around me seemed to thin for just a moment, and in that fragile sliver of clarity, I saw where I was standing, a bridge, old, narrow, guardrails rusted and bent. Below I could hear the faint rush of a river, swollen from the rain. The glow had stopped at the far end of the bridge, and there, barely visible through the fog, was a shape standing in it. It wasn't moving, it was just watching. Every instinct in me screamed to run, but something stronger, something colder, kept me there. I called out, "Who are you?" No answer. "Do you need help?" The figure tilted its head slightly, as if considering the question. Then it began to walk toward me, slowly, deliberately. Each step echoed softly on the wet wood, in perfect rhythm with the faint dripping of water below. I couldn't move. I just watched it come closer, the fog curling around its outline. It stopped halfway across the bridge, close enough now that I could almost make out its face. It wasn't a face, just darkness. Not shadow, but absence, unlike there was simply nothing there. Then it spoke, Not in words, just one sound. A low exhale like a sigh. But I heard it inside my head, and with it came something else. A rush of images, memories that weren't mine. A car crash. Screeching tires. A flash of lightning. A woman screaming my name. I stumbled backward, hands gripping the rusted railing. "No," I whispered. "That's not real." But the sound came again, softer this time, almost pleading, and then I remembered. The rain. The headlights. The sharp turn too fast. The moment the world flipped sideways and everything went quiet. I'd driven this road before, years ago, and I hadn't walked away. The light flickered, brighter now, and I saw, for the briefest moment, my own reflection standing where the figure had been. Then the light went out. I blinked, and the fog rushed back in, swallowing everything. The bridge creaked beneath my feet. Something dripped onto my shoulder. I looked up. A drop of dark water splashed against my cheek. Another. Then another. I wiped my face, but my fingers came away clean. No water, just cold. The air was changing again, heavier, electric. The kind of air that comes before a storm. When the world holds its breath, then I heard it, faint. Beneath the sound of the river, a voice, not whispering this time, singing, low, slow, almost childlike. A tune I half recognized from somewhere deep in my memory. It came from below the bridge. I leaned over the railing. The river churned far below, black and endless. The song grew louder, clearer, and then, for just a moment, I saw her, standing knee-deep in the water, pale, motionless, her hair floating around her like ink, her face tilted upward, eyes closed, lips moving softly with the melody. When her eyes opened, she looked directly at me. The song stopped. Her mouth curved into something that could have been a smile or a warning. And then she whispered, voice cutting through the air like a knife, "You never left." The bridge groaned under my feet. The air vibrated. The fog pulsed in and out like a living thing. I backed away, shaking my head. No, I did. I'm alive. The words sounded small, weak, like they belonged to someone else. The figure on the bridge appeared again. Closer now, though I hadn't seen it move. Behind it, the fog glowed faintly, forming the outline of a car's headlights. Crash frozen in time, and then I heard it, the screech, the crunch of metal, the splash. The memories came flooding back, all of it. The night, the storm, the turn I didn't see, the water filling the car, the silence that followed. And then, nothing. No rescue. No waking up. Just fog. The humming returned, so loud it hurt. My knees buckled and I dropped to the wet boards. My breath came in short, shallow bursts. The figure stopped inches from me. I looked up, where its face should have been. There was only reflection. Mine staring back at me, terrified, drenched, hollow-eyed. It leaned closer and whispered, with my own voice, "Now you remember." The fog erupted around us, swallowing the bridge, the river, the world, and in the distance, faint through the static in my head, I heard the soft rhythm of rain against glass, a car engine idling, a voice on the radio whispering through the static, "You never left the highway." I opened my eyes, and I was sitting behind the wheel again. The wipers moved lazily back and forth. The road stretched out ahead, empty. The fog was gone. The night hadn't ended when I thought it did. When I drove away from that bridge, I kept telling myself that I'd escaped, that I'd simply dozed off, imagined everything. That exhaustion had tricked my brain into believing the impossible. But even as the fog thinned, even as the road straightened out and the hum of my tires steadied. I couldn't shake the feeling that something had followed me. The world outside my windshield looked normal again, but too still, like a photograph of a world pretending to be real. The rain had stopped, yet droplets still trailed down the glass, endlessly without sound. The radio was off, yet I could hear something through the static. Not a voice exactly, more like a low rhythm. Breathing, I turned the knob until the noise vanished. Silence filled the car, heavy and unnatural. My headlights reached only a few feet ahead before dissolving into darkness. I checked the clock on the dashboard. 3:07 a.m., the same time it had been before the bridge. I tapped the clock. Nothing changed. I told myself it was broken, just water damaged. But then my phone buzzed in the cup holder. I snatched it up like a lifeline. No service. And the screen said the same thing. 3:07 a.m. It didn't make sense, but I didn't care anymore. I just wanted to get home, to real light, to walls, to anything that didn't hum inside my head. For a while, the road stayed straight, empty, smooth. Then, without realizing when it happened, I noticed I'd been driving through the same stretch over and over again, the same crooked tree by the guardrail, the same shredded billboard that said, "Welcome to Ridge Hollow." I passed it once, then again, then a third time. I laughed under my breath, a thin, nervous laugh that sounded foreign in the confined space. "You're tired. That's all." The dashboard light flickered. The air inside the car grew cold, the kind of cold that isn't from temperature but presence. Then softly, something tapped against the back window. Not hard, just a single deliberate tap. I stared into the rearview mirror. Nothing. Then again, tap. This time lighter. Almost polite, I turned fully around. My breath fogged the glass. Outside, the night stretched on forever. When I looked forward again, there was a figure standing in the middle of the road. My foot slammed the brake before I could think. The car skidded, fishtailed, stopped sideways across the yellow lines. The figure didn't move. It just stood there, barely illuminated by the headlights. Its head tilted, shoulders uneven. I blinked and it was gone. Just gone. But the air in the car felt full now. Too full. As if someone was sitting in the passenger seat, watching quietly. The radio came back to life on its own. A soft whisper through the static. Words forming and dissolving before I could catch them. Then I heard it clearly, my name. Once. Then again, drawn out, almost kind. I killed the engine. The sound cut instantly, leaving nothing but my pulse in the silence. I whispered, "What do you want?" The answer came as a faint echo, repeating me perfectly. "What do you want?" I didn't realize I was crying until I saw the streaks on my hands. The smell of rain was gone now. The air smelled like dust. When I stepped out, the night was still. Too still, no wind, no crickets, no distant highway hum. Just the steady drip of water from somewhere unseen. The world looked flatter here, drained of color. My headlights barely touched the road. I walked to the front of the car, squinting into the dark, searching for the figure. Instead, I saw something else. A car. Same model. Same color. Parked halfway off the road, 100 feet ahead. Its hazard lights blinked weakly, two dull orange eyes fading in and out. I took a step closer. Then another. My heart sank as I recognized the dent in the fender, the cracked tail light, the hanging mirror. It was my car. The exact same one. I stood frozen, watching my own vehicle sit there idling, exhaust puffing gently into the damp air. A faint melody drifted from inside it, familiar, distant. The same tune I'd heard under the bridge. I approached slowly, every instinct screaming to turn back, to run. But my legs moved anyway, through the driver's side window. I could see someone sitting behind the wheel, head tilted forward. Still, I reached the door, wiped away the fog with my sleeve, and saw myself, eyes open, mouth slightly parted, skin pale under the flickering dashboard light. I stumbled back, heart hammering against my ribs. The other me didn't move, didn't blink. Then the headlights behind me clicked on, blinding white. I spun around, but there was no car, no sound of an engine. Just light, floating there, spilling across the asphalt like a veil. In that light I saw shapes, dozens of them. People standing along the roadside, motionless. Their faces hidden, their outlines faint like smoke. They whispered together. A rustle like dry leaves. I caught fragments of words. Stay, remember. Finish. Then one of them stepped forward. A woman. Her voice was the same as the one who'd sung in the river. Soft, careful. You keep driving, she said. You always do. I shook my head. I just want to go home. She looked almost sad. You can't. You passed it a long time ago. The air thickened. My vision blurred at the edges, like the night itself was closing in. She stepped closer until the glow outlined her completely. I could see her face now, human, but faintly transparent, her eyes reflecting the light instead of catching it. You never left the road, she whispered. I stumbled backward, tripping over the curb. My hand brushed the metal guardrail, slick and cold. When I looked up, the lights were gone. The figures too. Only my car remained, the one I'd been driving. The door still open, engine idling softly. I climbed in, slammed the door and started to drive. No destination, no direction, just forward. For a while it worked. The darkness thinned, the rain returned, and I began to see the outlines of distant streetlights. Civilization. But every time I thought I saw a town ahead, it faded before I reached it. Gas stations with no signs. Houses with lights that went dark as I passed. Always the same stretch of highway waiting beyond. I turned the radio on again, desperate for any human voice. It crackled, hissed, then settled on a single frequency. Clearer than before. A man's voice, calm, professional. Breaking news tonight. Authorities have confirmed recovery of the missing driver from last week's crash off Ridge Hollow Bridge. No survivors were found. The words hit like ice. My hands trembled on the wheel. I looked in the mirror, my eyes catching something behind me. Far down the road through the mist, I could see faint emergency lights flashing blue and red, an accident scene. Mine. The voice on the radio faded into static again, replaced by that same melody, the song from the bridge, now faintly distorted, and beneath it my own voice whispered through the speaker. Turn around. I killed the engine. Everything went dark. For a moment nothing moved. Then I heard its soft footsteps in the gravel beside the car. I couldn't see anyone, but the sound drew closer, slow and deliberate. The passenger door handle rattled once, then stopped. I held my breath. Then quietly, it opened. Cold air flooded the cabin. I couldn't see who had entered, but I could feel them sit beside me. The seat dipped slightly. A faint whisper brushed my ear. You don't have to keep driving. I turned, but the seat was empty, outside the windshield. The fog brightened again, no longer gray but white, endless, weightless. And through it, I saw a flicker of morning light. Birdsong, trees, the faint warmth of a sunrise bleeding into the mist. For the first time, I felt something like peace. But as I blinked, the light dimmed again. The radio clicked one last time, a single phrase cutting through the quiet. You were found at 3:07 a.m., the same time. Always 3:07. I didn't remember closing my eyes, but when I opened them again, I was sitting in the driver's seat, hands on the wheel, rain tapping softly on the windshield. The highway stretched out in front of me, calm and familiar. For a second I believed it had all been a dream. Then, in the rearview mirror, I saw the bridge appear again. Its broken guardrail gleaming in the mist, a single figure stood on it. Me, and as I watched, it lifted its hand slowly, almost gently, and waved goodbye. The clock on the dashboard blinked. 3:07 a.m., and the road ahead began again.